and that's at the
Could you take on Russia by yourselves?
Well, you mentioned Canada. I think you're trying to find a divide between us that doesn't exist. We're the closest of nations, and we had very good discussions today, but we didn't discuss Canada.
Thank you.
The moment was explosive, a fight that would be remembered for years. Standing side by side in front of flashing cameras, Donald Trump confronted Keir Starmer, accusing him of lying to his face. The air in the room altered. Journalists leaned forward and scribbled feverishly. The crowd erupted in murmuring.
I'm not a fan of your mayor. Why not? I think he's done a terrible job. A nasty person. I think he's done. I think he's a friend of mine, right?
For Prime Minister Starmer, this was intended to be a demonstration of diplomatic calm, proof that he could deal with one of the most unpredictable people in global politics. Trump saw it as an opportunity to do what he does best: break through scripted talking points with unfettered candor.
But we also know that there have been infringements on free speech that actually affect not just the British. Of course, what the British do in their own country is up to them, but also affect American technology companies and by extension American citizens. So that is something that we'll talk about today at lunch.
What ensued was more than just a press conference. It became a clash of political ideologies. Starmer's polished, meticulously prepared statesmanship versus Trump's unvarnished honesty. Not only was personal pride at stake, but so was Britain's image on the world stage, as well as Starmer's leadership credentials.
Who are leaning, what you might say, towards the traditional right. They want Keir Starmer to be more Donald Trump. But of course, as Andrew says, the Labour base and Donald Trump turns his back on Keir Starmer and
exactly.
They walk away.
Did Keir Starmer succeed in presenting strength and poise? Or did Donald Trump, with a few choice words, shatter the illusion and reveal him as a politician eager to distort the truth when it suits him? The answer varies depending on which side of the Atlantic you're on, but the fallout has only just begun.
And Keir Starmer's government has decided that a priority in almost any real-life situation is not to deal with the real-life problems that occur, but instead to crack down on online content and much more.
To understand why this confrontation struck such a deep chord, we must turn back the clock. Keir Starmer began his career as a lawyer and later became Britain's Director of Public Prosecutions. His image was one of discipline, caution, and adherence to the rule of law. When Labour came apart following Jeremy Corbyn, Starmer emerged as the sober alternative, the man who could steady the ship and restore credibility. By the time he became Prime Minister, his image was clear, calculated, polished, and dependable. In contrast, Donald Trump has always been a disruptor. From his days in business to his rocky presidency, he has thrived on defying convention. His style is shamelessly forthright, frequently brash, and occasionally surprising. Whereas Starmer favours the calm language of legal pleadings, Trump loves the raw power of harsh slogans. The irony is that Starmer previously went all of his way to separate himself from Trump. Only a few years ago, he rejected Trump as dangerous and devoid of respect, even stating that he would never ask him to dinner. Fast forward to today, and Starmer not only extended an offer, but also handed Trump a formal letter from King Charles, inviting him to a second state visit. What is the reason behind the turnaround? Context is everything. With Brexit changing Britain's position in the world, the country requires stronger connections with Washington than ever. But Starmer's pivot raises questions about whether this is true diplomacy or political opportunism. Is he adapting to reality or abandoning his previous principles? The press conference showdown delivered some answers, but also showed flaws in both leaders' approaches to power, truth, and trust. The stage was set. Cameras flashed as Starmer attempted to strike a statesmanlike attitude, hailing the special relationship and emphasizing common principles. He then referenced Winston Churchill, describing him as a symbol of unity and strength. For a brief while, it appeared to be a safe line. Trump has a strong admiration for Churchill. However, within seconds, Trump transformed the compliment into a weapon. He reminded everyone that Starmer had previously condemned Churchill's colonial heritage, even removing his image from his office. Now he's praising him, Trump remarked. The man's a compulsive liar. The comment sliced through the event's polished tone. Starmer appeared rattled. His smile wavered. Journalists spotted it right away. A rare moment when the polished lawyer's facade crumbled. Body language experts later noticed the contrast. Trump sat with his legs apart in his typical power position, while Starmer, who had been tutored to appear confident, crossed his legs and forced a smile. The optics were clear. One man dominated while the other appeared rehearsed. The conflict escalated when US Senator J.D. Vance, a member of Trump's entourage, challenged Starmer on Britain's free speech record. He referenced the online safety bill and the increasing number of arrests for social media posts, in which ordinary people were charged with offensive comments that would be allowed in the United States. Trump seizes the occasion. He says Britain defends free speech, Trump told reporters, but they're locking people up for tweeting. That is not free speech. That is censorship. Starmer attempted to defend his government, saying that Britain struck a balance between expression and accountability. But the words seemed empty. To an American audience trained in First Amendment absolutism, Starmer appeared evasive. If free speech showed a policy gap, Churchill uncovered a credibility one. For years, Starmer had challenged Churchill's legacy, urging a balanced view of Britain's wartime commander. Now, in front of Trump, he suddenly extolled Churchill's magnificence. Trump pounced. This guy changes his tune depending on who he's speaking with. One day, Churchill is a problem. The next, he is hero. Which one is it? The remark struck a chord because it confirmed what many people already believed about Starmer. He alters his stance to suit the crowd. The most dramatic moment occurred when Starmer handed Trump a letter from King Charles, inviting him to an extraordinary second state visit. Starmer presented it as a goodwill gesture, demonstrating Britain's commitment to strong ties with the United States. Trump welcomed warmly, but his demeanour had an edge. "I will be there. I will honour the king. But I understand what's going on." The inference was clear. Trump perceived the move as a political manoeuvre rather than real friendship. Back in the UK, the reaction was instantaneous. Labour MPs were concerned that Starmer was cozying up to Trump, who many in their base despised. Conservatives ridiculed him as a hypocrite. Reform UK published headlines about two-faced Keir. Media outlets have separated. Some commended Starmer's pragmatic diplomacy, while others lambasted him for abandoning his ideals. One tabloid headline summed up the mood. From Trump hater to Trump's best mate, who is the real Starmer? On social media, clips of Trump labelling Starmer a liar went viral with millions of shares. Hashtags like #Starmer exposed trended for several days. Some voters applauded Starmer's diplomatic efforts, but many saw weakness. The question lingered. Did Starmer maintain his position, or did Trump humiliate him? In any case, the encounter brought both leaders into sharp focus. One boisterous and unabashedly forthright, the other careful, calculated, and maybe exposed. The confrontation between Donald Trump and Keir Starmer was more than just a heated press conference. It was a symbolic collision of two political worlds, one based on direct sincerity, and the other on refined diplomacy. Trump's method has always been straightforward: talk clearly, highlight weaknesses, and portray opponents as dishonest. For millions, its brazenness is interpreted as honesty. In an era when politicians are distrusted, Trump's candor resonates precisely because it appears spontaneous. His claim that Starmer was lying was not about Churchill or free speech. It was a performance intended to demonstrate the gap between what leaders say and do. In contrast, Starmer represents the typical lawyer-politician model. He prefers to maintain control, use careful words, and avoid emotional outbursts. That works in court, but on a global scale, against Trump, it risks appearing evasive. Every time Starmer defended himself with well-crafted language, Trump broke through with a one-liner that made headlines. The danger for Starmer is perception. In politics, perception might be more important than facts. Whether he genuinely lied, the viral videos show Trump calling him dishonest and Starmer appearing uneasy. These visuals can stay with voters long after the specifics disappear. There's also a cultural dimension. In the United States, free expression is seen as sacred. Trump and J.D. Vance took advantage of this distinction, using Britain's online safety bill to represent authoritarian slide. Americans were taken aback when they learnt that people may be arrested for tweeting. Starmer's justification that Britain balances rights and responsibilities seemed weak. For Britain, the episode raises difficult questions. Can a Prime Minister with a reputation for integrity withstand accusations of hypocrisy? Can a leader who once promised never to legitimise Trump now rely on him for a state visit? These discrepancies support the notion that Starmer is opportunistic rather than principled. The broader implications include the growth of authenticity politics. Globally, voters are rejecting polished, scripted leaders in favour of unvarnished truth-tellers. Trump exemplifies that trend. In this fight, Starmer represented the polar opposite, scripted, cautious, and ultimately vulnerable to being outflanked. The meeting between Donald Trump and Keir Starmer was more than just a diplomatic discussion. It was a watershed event. In just a few minutes, Trump turned the script, turning Starmer's meticulously orchestrated performance into a global conversation about honesty, hypocrisy, and political authenticity. Starmer intended to project control, demonstrating his ability to manage one of modern politics' most volatile individuals. Instead, he left with his veracity questioned and his body language analysed frame by frame online. In contrast, Trump came away having reinforced his brand: outspoken, unapologetic, and eager to say what others won't. For Britain, the stakes extend far beyond optics. The special relationship with the United States remains important. But for Starmer, the question is both personal and political. Can he re-establish trust at home when his opponents have viral video of Trump labelling him a liar in his face? History frequently reduces leaders to fleeting moments. For Trump, this press conference could be remembered as another evidence of his disruptive power. For Starmer, it risks becoming a symbol of weakness, a breach in the facade that reveals the polished lawyer. And the verdict will not come from politicians or commentators, but from the people, who are still asking who the real Keir Starmer is. Let us know what you think down below in the comments.